Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show. Hello, welcome in Guerilla Sports Off Ice. Postgame live, Avs, Blue Jackets. And for a game that started in a way that the Avs probably didn't like, boy, oh boy, did they put an exclamation point on the back half of this one. 7-3 is the final, and Meghan, the Avalanche have punched their ticket to the 2025 Stanley Cup Playoffs, and they did it in convincing fashion.
Yeah, I think our expectation was set, okay, be better than the Chicago game in terms of effort. And after two periods, I was a little bit mixed on how I was going to feel while they really came away with this one in the end. And honestly, those were still two good periods from the Avs. I just wanted great. So they delivered on the second leg of a back-to-back. They emptied the tanks. They got contributions from all over the lineup. Even Mackenzie Blackwood, who didn't always look like himself in this game, finishes with a positive saves above expected because Columbus fought till the very end, especially in terms of trying to create chances, but the Avs did a much better job of holding Columbus to the outside, and they put the puck in the back of the net a few more times. What a great way to cap it off and punch their ticket to the dance.
Well, and it felt the second and third periods of this game felt a little bit angry for the Avalanche, and I mean that in a positive way. That, hey, look, we recognize that last night, even though we came away with the result that we wanted, was nowhere near good enough. Tonight, you were trying to add 2 points to your standings total to get into the playoffs. You don't want to back into that. You don't want it to, in the same way people have been talking about how Alex Ovechkin probably isn't going to want to break the Gretzky record on an empty net. It's the same type of thing here. You don't want to go into the playoffs after a disappointing game last night where you kind of stumble into another 2 points. Like, oh, we're going to... No, you want to feel good about your process, your depth. And excuse me, I think after that first period, the Avs were able to get on the horse and really take this one where they needed to. And my favorite part of it, if I'm Jared Bednar and I'm looking at this, it's contributions from all over the lineup. Like you said, even Mackenzie Blackwood, who at the second intermission, we said, okay, you get a chance to make up for some maybe shaky moments here. He did that, even though the Avs added some goal support to that, they didn't need it.
No, because that was, you talk about score effects in games when you're reviewing analytics. It's true. Of the third period, Columbus led the shots battle and came away with such a close, high danger chances, 3-2 in favor of the Avs, though, because they did do a good job to hold Columbus off to the outside. There was a lot of fight, though, in this game, and I thought that Mackenzie Blackwood, by the end of it all, had settled in and was seeing pucks a lot more clearly. And then I like, too, the significance of the contributions all over the lineup that you mentioned in the absence of two huge players to their top six in Jonathan Drouin and Martin Necas. They get some guys like Charlie Coyle, his first in an Avs uniform, and Miles Wood, who has not seen much this action this season, to be huge contributors in this game. And I think that's going to be a big takeaway, that even if they lose some of their key players, this is still such a good and dominant team, not only because of the guys at the top, but all of that depth that they added at the deadline.
Yeah, this was one of those games where I think, we hear people talk about, oh man, you want to see your depth contribute. Your top guys can't score every night. And you also hear people say, oh man, you need your top guys to be going every single night. This was a night where the Avs didn't like what they put out in the first period, and all 4 lines, 60. Tonight it was only 110 that you needed, but I'm sure
the tale of 210.
Right, I'm sure Scott Wedgwood had plenty of positive reinforcement on the bench. But look, this is, all jokes aside, this is what you're talking about. Hey, it takes everyone to dig in and help get the team out of a hole and get them to where they want to go. And I thought this was a game that the Avs really needed. Not only obviously the result, but the way they got there process-wise. Yeah, you'd always like to see a team come out and just control for 60 minutes and coast to an easy win. Not always going to be like that. And the Avs had to overcome some hurdles they kind of put in their own way this game. And let's start off the top and talk about how this game unfolded. The score is 2-1 after the first period. Nathan MacKinnon opens the scoring less than 3.5 minutes into the game. Sean Monahan responds just a few minutes later. And then it is Brock Nelson late who does give the Avs back the lead. But you and I both said, Megan, yeah, they've got a 2-1 lead, but that was not a sustainable period, and that's not winning hockey.
No, the giveaways were more than their first period in Chicago, and we didn't like that one for a reason. Uncharacteristic mistakes from the top of the lineup. That was still kind of true in this first period. And so there was this concern of, did they learn the lessons they needed to? Because I don't think anyone was super happy with the result in Chicago. It felt like a team that should be very much beatable, and they made life difficult for themselves, and they won on pure skill. You've got a hungry Columbus Blue Jackets team that's vying for a wild card spot and has had a lot of fight in them late this season that's pushing back, and you have some of those same mistakes carry over. So you feel some frustration over that. You want to see the Avs making these changes quickly, because in a 7-game series, the turnaround time between games and bad process and mistakes like that, it's not very forgiving. And so I'm spoiling it, but going into the second, there's gradual improvements. And then by the end of the second period, you feel really differently about this game than you did at the end of the first.
See, and I apologize, I'm going to contradict you a little bit here, because what I was going to say was the way that the first 8 minutes of the second period, you're sitting there going, well, so they didn't learn any lessons at all from last night. Columbus comes on, gets on the gas, scores 2 quick goals, and suddenly the Avs find themselves chasing this game. And where I was going to go with that was exactly what you were saying about the turnaround time in a playoff series isn't very forgiving in terms of, trying to bounce back, shake off a bad loss, whatever. You're also going to have moments like that in a playoff game where, forget not having, enough time between the next game. You've got to get things turned around either between periods or within a period. And it was after that second Columbus goal in the second period where I felt like the Avs did start to do that a bit. And more of what you're talking about, start to inch in the right direction. And by the time we come out of that second period, not only have you shaken off all the bad feelings from the way that period started, you're really starting to feel good about it.
I don't think that contradicted what I said.
Well, no, I'm sorry. You said the second period starting, they started doing some good things better.
By the end of the second period, you felt different compared to by the end of the first.
Totally.
Because if you run the tape, in the intermission report, I was very critical with how the Avs started this period. They're losing battles, and they're not defending well at center ice, and it's allowing easy pucks to be won for Columbus. And that leads to the first 2 goals in the second period. And some of that you feel a little bit weird on how Mackenzie Blackwood is not seeing pucks too well, maybe allowing more second, third attempts than you'd like to see. But they start to clean it up, and they start to win more battles. And that is how the Parker Kelly goal is born. And they make smarter decisions on the Charlie Coyle goal, starting with a good forecheck that rewards them. And that's where you start to see the effort come into play, because that was what I felt was absent in the Chicago game. They led with skill, and that was enough to get them the win against a hungry Columbus team. Skill alone was not going to be enough to get them the win. Even on the second leg of a back-to-back, they needed more effort. You started to see that come through. And then the late power play goal is honestly what ultimately changes my feelings about the second period, because it would have actually ended very similar to how the first did, only being up by 1 goal. Getting that 2-goal lead insurance coming out of the second period and capitalizing on a power play opportunity where they've struggled lately, it really started to feel like they changed the direction of this game. And it created excellent momentum that they didn't let up on at the start of the third period, and how the rest of it played out.
Well, and not only did they lead with skill last night and were eventually able to kind of outskill their way to a win there, you got an exceptional performance from Scott Wedgwood last night in Chicago as well. Several big saves. You weren't getting that at the start of this game from Mackenzie Blackwood. We talked about it, I believe it was in the first intermission. The first intermission. Or maybe it was the second when he'd given up a couple goals there. And it was, hey, look, this is a moment where you can't rely on your skill. You got to dig deep here, and you got to give your goaltender some support. And that was what I thought they also did well there, with what you're talking about those adjustments that they were able to make is, you weren't going to be able to outskill your way to this one. You just weren't. Your goaltender wasn't having the same night as your goaltender was last night. You were just a little bit more disjointed in your own end. You're playing against a more desperate Columbus team than Chicago was last night. You had to find something different than what they brought in the Chicago game. And again, for me, I'm looking at so much of what we're seeing here in these games down the stretch of how do they handle adversity Either it's within a game or from one game to the next. How are they dealing with it when things aren't going their way? They're getting bad breaks. You end up with penalties you don't like, soft goals against, whatever. And in a lot of instances, hasn't been perfect, but in a lot of instances here, down the last 5-10 games, I think they've responded well.
Yeah, seeing the way the Calgary game, for example, slipped out of their grasp, I like the way too that they took a stronghold over this game. Out of the second period, they have a 2-goal lead, but they don't stop there. 4 minutes into the third period, immediately after the draw, Taves, some of that's just, I think Merzlikins wasn't having his best night either, but Taves beats him through traffic after a play that unfolded so quickly after the draw. And Lehkonen was also a pretty decent screen there. So I like the way that the top six, though it had a little bit of a different look, worked together tonight too. Obviously, they're not the sole storyline in this game because others outside of the top six also contributed. That was another point of growth for me in watching Chicago and now this Columbus game. They leaned heavily on the top players in the Chicago game, and those were some of the guys who weren't having the best night. Here, they didn't have to squarely rely on just those players, though they did work together, even missing Necas and Drouin. And you also don't let up. And so that's where the Miles Wood goal comes into play after that Taves goal. They just didn't stop playing at any point.
Well, and excuse me. So Zach Aston-Reese scores the first goal of the second period, and they were very excited about it. You and I were trying to figure out why the Blue Jackets, not that it matters to anything. You and I were just like, that was a really excited celebration for Zach Aston-Reese, just like scoring another goal on Thursday. So he gets the goal. Then Boone Jenner comes in later, cleans up a rebound. And that to me was where it felt, after that moment was when the Avs started to outwork the Columbus Blue Jackets. Like I look at last night's game against Chicago, they got outworked in a lot of areas. We talked about the goal last night that Connor Murphy scores, where it's the Avs getting hemmed in their own zone, then not able to get pucks up and out. There was a shift in this game. Granted, it was on the end of a power play, but you and I made the comment aloud again. They can't get the puck out. They started to work. They started to move their feet. And like you said, they started layering traffic going to the net. Arturi Lehkonen's in front. Guys are battling for rebounds. And I just thought it was the little details that started to shine through. And while maybe none of the 3 goals that came after were a result of, a heavy board battle followed by a great screen in front, at least in the second period, it's no coincidence to me that it's Charlie Coyle, that it's Parker Kelly, the guys who lead the work ethic charge there in the bottom half of the lineup are able to get it going. And then I'm with you. The power play goal for Cale Makar is where everything shifted there in terms of how this game felt, the way that the Avs seemed to feel about it, the momentum, everything. But I just wanted to make sure to point out, I don't find it to be a coincidence that the players who got in the goal column for the Avs in the second period were the players who they were, because I felt like that was when the Avs started to work.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll even give them credit for the way the goals get scored in the second period, all born from work, in my opinion. It's Drury on the forecheck that disrupts Columbus's breakout and changes the trajectory of that puck back up ice for the Avs to claim it. And suddenly it's well within their control. They make smart decisions after that point that I'll point to skill and lean on that. But then the Charlie Coyle goal, it starts with Taves kind of chipping away at a puck, and ultimately it's OC who strips that puck away from the Columbus player along the wall. That's all hard work. Yep. And so, maybe their names don't pop off the score sheet in quite the same way, but there's a reason why Jared Bednar touts these players as much as he does, because it does carry over into the momentum of the third period. Even the Miles Wood goal, it starts with winning a D-zone draw and getting the puck up ice. And then Wood utilizes his speed to help make this goal possible. But Kiviranta and Wood, the way that they enter a zone, it's going to be different from how Marty Necas or Nathan McKinnon do it. They have to chip away at that puck and wear a little bit of contact. I was doing so good,
I was going to say, you brought it back. You brought it back from the intermission.
Something wrong has happened here. But anyways, Miles Wood, a player that I really needed to see a visible impact, because he was a regular mainstay on the roster last year. He could cause chaos and wreak havoc, and he had a little more skill upside to be a guy that you want to see him do a little more offensively. I think he's found some chemistry with Charlie Coyle. I think that this is an intriguing combination between the two, but it's the work that makes his goal possible in the third period too, because of how they enter that zone. He's kind of physically imposing, so he's protecting the puck. It isn't very hard work for him. Chips the puck deep into the zone, and it's Kiviranta who is able to protect it, wear a little bit of contact, and get that pass off to Coyle below the goal line, a dangerous area of ice. And that's where Coyle uses not only kind of his size, but also his skill to find a seam to Miles Wood, who's able to get to the crease pretty undisturbed. And I think that's the Miles Wood effect, is not a lot of players wanted to go toe-to-toe with him when he entered the blue line and then at the crease. And I found that interesting because he wasn't being challenged as much as I think he should. Maybe it's because of the year Miles Wood has had, or because he is kind of that chaos machine. Either way, it led to a pretty easy opportunity then for Miles Wood to just bury the puck. And it was off a beautiful feed from Charlie Coyle. But the players that are on the ice, it's Zach Werenski, who is one of the players who is defending that lane to Miles Wood at the crease and is trying to reach across and stop it from happening. And he just doesn't. And so I want to shout out Miles Wood too for the night that he had and finding a way to make a difference, because I feel he's drawn into the lineup now a couple times on rotation and I haven't noticed him. But I noticed him tonight, and I noticed him specifically with what he did with Charlie Coyle.
I know you're excited about Miles Wood because you keep getting ahead of me, because I wanted to talk about, as we move into the third period, you and I talked about in the intermission of, hey, come lock things down here, right? This is the next step, close out a game. Well, the Avs came out right at the start of that third period, and it's a Devon Taves goal, and then I believe it's a minute 49 later?
Minute 48,
Minute 48,
I think.
Minute 48 later, it is Miles Wood. And you had specifically talked about Miles Wood both on camera and off camera as this game was getting started, saying, I want to see more out of Miles Wood. And I actually found it was during the first period, so we weren't on air. But Meghan, that I found it to be an interesting comment. You said, I want to see more out of Miles Wood. And I said, I've kind of given up on Miles Wood. And you said him, and you also called out Kiviranta, saying like, no,
you're right.
These are guys that are important to this lineup that they need to see more out of as we get deeper into this run. And so you had specifically said, like, Miles Wood is someone that we need to see do something. And when we saw him pick up that assist again, or on the Charlie Coyle goal, we talked in the second intermission of, hey, you need these guys to be able to show that they can contribute as you go down the stretch and going into the playoffs, if you need to be able to draw on these guys. Miles Wood is someone that we thought would be a lineup regular all season, assuming he was healthy. This has been a really weird year for him. I bet if you ask him, is what I'm saying. And so I'm with you to see him be able to step up in that moment, in a moment where you're dealing with some injuries. So you're getting a shot here, and to make the most of it, I think it's a worthy call out tonight. He helped set up Charlie Coyle. Charlie Coyle returns the favor the next period.
Yeah, and this is where shades of Miles Wood old came through in this game, because on the Charlie Coyle goal, it was a really smart outlet from EJ up ice, but Miles Wood had to use his speed to help make that entry possible. And then he waits patiently just enough time to get the puck under the stick of a Columbus player cross ice to Charlie Coyle. That's just a smart play that an NHL regular does make. That's where you see like, oh, that's why Miles Wood has had the career leading up to this point that he has. Maybe we haven't seen it so much this year, but a little bit of work gets into that. And then similarly, the work is definitely what serves them well on Miles Wood's own goal. Again, speed up ice, but also having to protect the puck. And Kiviranta does it too. He stays off Matachuk, and then it's Charlie Coyle who gets the puck through not only Werenski, but also Sean Monahan. Two very good players to an undefended Miles Wood. And some of that, I think, is Miles Wood asserting himself and asserting his dominance to get to the crease. Another display of speed too to getting there. And the rest isn't this highly skilled, wonderful thing. It's a little bit greasy, but that's Miles Wood's game.
Well, and Meghan, I felt like Miles Wood played in control tonight. You referred to him a minute ago as just, he's kind of a ball of chaos. And I think there's been times this season where it's, we've seen Ross Colton kind of take a step within this system this year. I know he went cold for a bit there in the middle of the year, but he seems like he's understanding his role, how the Avs want to play, how to best fit his type of play to what the Avs do. And it felt like for so much of this season, Miles Wood just couldn't get his game to match the way that the Avs wanted it to play. Tonight, I thought was a great example. He brought energy. He was disruptive. He went to the net. But to your point just now, he also showed patience, and he showed some skill, and he showed some finesse. And that's just what we haven't seen enough out of him. I'm a firm believer. I think you need stars to win the Stanley Cup. I think you need superstar players to help get you there in the moments when it's toughest, things like that. But it is too grueling of a grind to not be getting meaningful contributions from the bottom half of your lineup. And to see a night like tonight and to see the way that the box score shook out for the Avalanche, I think you have to be feeling really good that this is the blueprint. You're not going to score 7 goals every night, but this is the blueprint. Top guys got to set the tone. Supporting cast has to come in behind and help make a difference later in games when things start to go the other way. And having that confidence now be built a little bit in not only your depth, but in guys like Miles Wood who are coming off the bench. That helps a lot.
Yeah, I love the point you make too about how there were 2 points in this game. The first period, the start of the second period, a decent amount of it, right? They were held to just 5 shots at the start of the second period through about the midway point.
Yeah.
They regain control though. And they regain control and they don't let it get out of reach and they don't let it get out of hand. They're not playing from such a place of desperation that leads to mistakes, as we saw in Chicago. I think that they were put in such a place of desperation. We saw bad hockey.
Yeah.
It didn't get so far out of reach tonight, and that's what true pros do. They bring that game back within reach and take control of it. So it's not just Miles Wood taking control of his own game, but that is a huge part of it. It's contributions from everybody, because someone in the chat mentioned bottom 6 were putting in work tonight. Jack Drury, 60% at the dot. A team high 4 block shots for Parker Kelly, 19 block shots from this team. There were 23 block shots or attempted shots that were blocked on behalf of Columbus. When you look at the missed and the attempts blocked, this Columbus team was throwing everything but the kitchen sink at the Avs. And the Avs did great to manage their lanes, get in them, sacrifice the body as needed. And that's where you look at a player like Jack Drury, whether he's winning a draw or maintaining the zone, or Parker Kelly getting in those lanes, sacrificing the body. And you see the overall value too, because the bottom 6 had a scoring impact tonight, in addition to playing well in their own end and helping to make the life of Mackenzie Blackwood a little bit easier. And I think that just supports everybody that much better.
The Avs seem to lift themselves up halfway through that third period and take it up a level. And look, where I give the Avs the most credit is Columbus hasn't had a great last 10 games, especially for a team that's as desperately trying to get into the playoffs as they are. But they needed a win tonight to try to keep pace. So for the Avs to be able to really make that third period look as easy as they did, I think says something, because Columbus, like they were going to make a push, and the Avs just kind of immediately, with the Devon Taves goal, squashed it. Nope, you're not. We're in control of this game. We're going to take it home the rest of the way. And I think that is another thing that we were talking about playoff hockey. One of the things that was so impressive about the Avs in 2022 was their ability to close and their ability to take a game where they knew that the other team's best shot was coming, and like you said, take control of that game and not allow the other team to dictate pace and style and things like that when they were at their most desperate. The Avs said, hey, look, you can play desperate, you can play hard-nosed hockey, but we're still in control here. And I thought that was what they did here tonight as well.
Yeah, the Avs are a possession team that doesn't get outshot often. And coming out of the first period, that was the case. Obviously, the late push from Columbus made that the case coming out of the third. But on the whole of this game, they still win the shots battle in the end. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of where you see the dominance, because, as you mentioned, Columbus had a strong say in this game. And it just felt like it was as simple as the Avs making the decision to be better. And the minute that they did, you saw a difference in the way that they played.
I love the way you put that. Yep.
And it was so, I don't want to say easy. I'm sure if one of them was here, they'd laugh me out of the building. But it was easy in that if they all worked together, this wasn't this hard, we need a hero, we need one guy to carry this team on its back. When everybody's working together, they kind of do make easy work of things.
It wasn't easy, but they made it look easy. And that, again, is something that I think is a hallmark of a great team, of a championship team, is you can make these difficult moments look easy by sticking to your process, working together, helping each other out, supporting in the D zone. You can make putting up 7 goals against a team that was just up on you in the game, is trying to get into the playoffs. You can make it look easy when you're doing the right things and you have a team as good as what the Avs have here. So I don't think they'd laugh you out of here because they made it look easy, and I think that was part of the game plan.
See, that's a compliment. Yeah. To the greasiest boys around.
That's right. We've got a super chat here from our guy Vaguely Sober. There it is. We got the super chat lights even at the desk here. That water bottle, what I think it is, future merch. Vaguely, I was told right before we went live tonight that I'm not allowed to confirm nor deny what you're asking about, but I don't know. I haven't seen this water bottle around before, and maybe stay tuned for a fun announcement at some point next week. But we got a box sitting upstairs full of stuff.
Whoa!
That's all I'll say. Who knows? Who's to say what the stuff is? But also what Bagley calls out here, Guerilla Sports has announced today we are taking it out to the Diamond, Megan. We are going to Coors Field this summer. We will be covering the Colorado Rockies in the MLB in general. And we had one of the best gets in town for this, Megan. The best get in town for our Rockies coverage. We're so excited, so happy to announce Susie Hunter will be joining the Guerilla Sports team to bring you guys the best coverage of the Colorado Rockies you're going to get anywhere. We're going to have a lot of fun this year. We've spent the last week putting together plans with Susie, and it's all been led from the standpoint of we want to have fun covering this team. We all know the reality of what we might be looking at down on Blake Street this year with the team the Rockies got put together, but we're going to have a ton of fun, and we're going to bring baseball coverage to the people of Denver the way it's never been done before.
Susie belongs back on that beat in a press box. It would be so wrong for there to be a Rocky season come and go without her covering it.
Yeah.
So it feels like things have just been righted in this world, and I selfishly just wanted to work with her again. So I was pretty motivated to have her on the GS team, but also because of what she does that is so unique to her. She is funny as heck. She is a riot. I'm so excited to be her colleague again.
We got our first piece of Rockies content out today featuring Susie. They allowed us in to go taste test all the new food that they've got on offer at Coors Field. We're going to have more coming out on that tomorrow as we lead up to opening day, that first pitch tomorrow afternoon. If we get there, it's going to be pretty snowy and nasty, so we'll see if that game gets postponed or not. But a ton of great content coming your guys' way all summer. Last year it was sad around here in the summer because we had all these great content creators in here and we had no sports to go talk about. Not going to be the case this summer. Really excited to be adding Susie to the team. And hey, if this means that we get to go out and enjoy some more games at Coors Field this summer, I'm all in for that. Megan, what else do you got on this one? 7-3 win for the Avs, a big night for them. They punch a ticket to the playoffs. Cale Makar, who we talked about at length in the second intermission, we haven't really mentioned here, does become the first defenseman since 2008 to hit 30 goals. What are your final thoughts on tonight?
Nathan MacKinnon has a 3-point night, and Kucherov is scoreless in the Tampa game, or pointless, I should say. So he's
pointless. Nikita Kucherov, pointless in the Tampa game.
That is not what I said. All right, MacKinnon ahead in the points race. It's going to be neck and neck down to the wire for this one, but just good for him to continue.
Continue.
And those are my final thoughts.
That's all I've got too. I mean, good night for the Avs. I thought this was a night that started in a way that you didn't love. But the way that they were able to put the game together, I think is ultimately an overwhelming positive. And you've got to be happy with the way that you came out of the result in this one, even though you don't like the start. Stuff to take away from this for sure. Keep your eye out. We're going to have some fun announcements coming soon. We also might be doing a small little giveaway on tomorrow's show, so make sure you are tuning in for that. We might have a couple things that we're going to be giving away and then some fun announcements. And hey, if you're a baseball fan or even if you're not, keep it locked in tomorrow. We're going to have a ton of great content coming your guys' way from Rockies opening day. Susie's going to be making her big splash. And then we haven't had a chance to get all of the details ironed out on it yet, so I don't have a date for it, but we will have a new podcast featuring Susie Hunter launching here either next week or the following, coming from Guerilla Sports. So a lot of exciting stuff coming here in the coming days and weeks, and a lot of fun announcements that we're hoping people are going to enjoy.
What will it be called? We have off field.
That's part of the reason why we don't know yet.
Off grass.
Off the grass. Just get off the grass. That's what it's called.
Is it really grass? It's dirt. Off dirt.
It's grass and dirt. There's dirt and grass.
Off the dirt and the grass.
Off the dirt.
It
Off the
rolls
mound.
Right. That might work.
Because someone said off the diamond.
Base. That's adorable. I mean,
off base. Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, but see, actually, you know what? We threw off base out, and that made it sound like, oh, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You're so off base on this.
I kind of like that.
Throw your suggestions in the chat tonight, tomorrow. We got all kinds of great stuff coming.
Help us.
Help us, please. Mark behind the glass tonight. As always, making sure that all of this even works. We would just be in an empty room talking to each other.
About Greece.
If it wasn't for Mark talking about Greece, if it wasn't for Mark. So we're going to let him get out of here, get home. She's Meghan Angley. I'm Jesse Montano. Thanks so much for stopping by, guys. We got a fun feature piece coming. Some fun stuff happening in the morning, and then we'll be back at Guerilla Sports Off Ice tomorrow afternoon. We'll talk to you guys then. Have a great one, guys. Stay warm out there.
Bye.